In a universe where the star's brilliance fades and humanity's very essence seems on the brink of collapse, a fundamental question echoes through the cosmic void. What remains when reality becomes unbearable and the only escape is a purchased dream? Have you ever wondered what would happen if hope, the most human emotion of all, could be bottled, sold, and consumed like a narcotic, capable of transporting us to fantasy worlds while our own crumbles? And what if, behind all this illusion, there was a terrible cost, a hidden truth capable of shattering not only our dreams but the very fabric of what we know as life? Prepare for a journey that challenges perception and questions the very nature of reality. Buckle up, cosmic travelers, because today, we will delve into the depths of a dystopian future where the line between dream and nightmare is thin, and the price of hope might be our very soul. If you seek inspiration, an escape from the barren daily reality, and if stories that expand the mind and heart are your fuel, then this is your place. Like this video, share it with your friends who love good science fiction. Leave your comments with your theories, and of course, subscribe to the channel to not miss any of our epic explorations through the universe of science fiction. The twilight of reality. A world without its own colors. Imagine a not-too-distant future where the sky is gray, cities are faded concrete monoliths, and nature, as we know it, is just a distant memory. Great climate catastrophes and incessant conflicts have depleted the planet's resources, transforming the once vibrant Earth into a technological desert. The population, squeezed into overcrowded megalopolises, lives under a dome of pollution and disillusionment. There are no more utopias to seek, no horizons to explore. Life has become an arduous, repetitive routine, devoid of purpose and, above all, joy. In this scenario of silent despair, humanity, always ingenious in its search for relief, found a new frontier, not in outer space, but in the depths of the mind itself. Dreams. No longer a spontaneous nightly refuge, dreams are now a commodity, the planet's most valuable resource, surpassing any remaining mineral or energy in value. They are cultivated, harvested, and commercialized, offering a glimpse of lost paradises, impossible adventures, and forgotten happiness. The global economy revolves around this new industry, the oniric industry, a behemoth that promises every individual a chance to escape, even if only for a few hours, from the painful truth of their existence. Streets that once teemed with life now see people with glassy eyes, immersed in holographic projections of flowering gardens or epic battles, while their bodies move like automatons through the dusty streets. Children, who in another era would play freely, now dream of fairy tales, fed by portable devices that inject prefabricated narratives directly into their young brains. Reality is a heavy burden, and the oniric escape is the air society breathes. But, as with every great innovation, especially those that promise happiness at a low cost, there is a dark truth, a hidden side that few dare to contemplate. What is real when perception itself is manipulated? And what is lost when the ability to dream is outsourced? Oniric technology, the cradle of cultivated dreams. At the heart of this new economy pulsate the megacorporations of the oniric industry, conglomerates that hold a monopoly not only on the distribution but also on the production of dreams. The technology behind this feat is a triumph of neural engineering, developed from advances in neuroscience and artificial intelligence. Complex neural networks, powered by sophisticated algorithms, are capable of mapping and replicating brain patterns associated with emotions, memories, and fantasies. But the true innovation, and the most closely guarded secret, lies in the ability to extract these patterns directly from highly sensitive human minds. These minds belong to the harvesters, individuals with a rare predisposition to have incredibly vivid and detailed dreams. They are the raw material of this billion-dollar industry. Equipped with a device known as the oniric siphon, a kind of metallic crown embedded with tiny electrodes and optical fibers, harvesters are connected to gigantic processing systems. During their sleep, the siphon captures the brain waves and electrical impulses that shape their dreams, translating them into digital data. This data is then refined, cataloged, and finally transformed into packages of oniric experiences that can be consumed by anyone. The precision of this technology is astonishing. It's possible to replicate the sensation of wind in a green field, the taste of an exotic fruit, or the emotion of a first love with fidelity almost indistinguishable from reality. Dreams are classified by genre, adventure, romance, horror, pure fantasy, and sold in oniric markets, accessible via public terminals or personal devices. For the average consumer, it's a blessing. The pain of existence dissolves, replaced by hours of euphoria and escapism. For the elite, it's a status symbol, with access to exclusive premium dreams, designed by elite harvesters, true oniric artists. However, behind this technological marvel, an abyss of ethical questions opens up, and the fragility of the human mind is put to the test. What happens to the mind that not only dreams but has its dreams drained and commercialized? The harvesters, guardians or prisoners of the mind. They are the backbone of the oniric industry, but also its greatest silent victims, the harvesters. Seen by the public as almost mythical figures, blessed with the gift of creating entire universes in their minds, the reality of their lives is brutally different. They are young individuals, often forcibly recruited or lured by empty promises of a better life, imprisoned in complex harvesting centers. Their minds, once filled with personal dreams, become mere conduits, inexhaustible sources of raw material for the entertainment of the masses. A harvester's routine is a constant vigil, an existence intertwined with machines. Their beds are padded capsules, equipped with the oniric siphons, and their days are regulated by sleep and extraction cycles. Exhaustion is a constant companion, not just physical, but mental and emotional. The line between the harvester's identity and the worlds they project becomes increasingly thin. They dream not for themselves, but for millions, and every fragment of their imagination is stripped, analyzed, and packaged. Think of the torture of having your most intimate memories, your deepest desires, your wildest fantasies exposed and commercialized. This is the reality. A harvester's psyche is a battlefield. Many succumb to oniric fatigue, a degenerative condition that blurs the boundaries between what is real and what is a dream. They begin to live in a state of permanent dissociation, unable to discern their own memories from the fantastic scenarios they produce for others. Cases of catatonia, psychosis, and even complete mental collapse are alarmingly common, but hushed up by the corporations. After all, the demand for dreams is insatiable, and new harvesters are always found to fill the gaps. They are treated as mere biological machines whose sole function is to produce the most potent drug of the century: artificial hope. The story of our protagonist, an exhausted and disillusioned harvester, is about to intertwine with this cruel fate in a way no one could predict. Her mind, a channel for countless dreams, is beginning to rebel, and the echoes of that rebellion promise to uncover secrets that could shake the pillars of the oniric industry. The seed of doubt. When nightmares reveal more than waking amidst the exhausting routine of harvesting others' dreams, our protagonist, Lena, a harvester in her 20s, with eyes that have seen too many universes for her own peace, begins to feel a rift opening in her own mind. It was no longer artificial dreams that tormented her, but something much more personal and disturbing: recurring nightmares. At first, they were confused fragments, distorted images of whispering machines and distant voices. She dismissed them as the result of chronic fatigue, an inevitable side effect of her profession. But the frequency and intensity only increased. The strangest thing was that these nightmares didn't seem to be just hers. They chaotically intertwined with the fantasies she was forced to project for others. While a client somewhere distant reveled in a dream of floating over lavender fields, Lena was dragged into an abyss of darkness, where shadowy figures manipulated invisible threads, and the metallic laughter of gears echoed in her ears. The visions were too vivid, too real to be mere products of her overloaded mind. They were intrusions, echoes of something bigger, that shouldn't have been there. She began to notice patterns. Certain nightmares coincided with the extraction of specific types of dreams, as if there was a resonance, a system glitch that allowed unwanted information to pass through. Fragmented voices, images of corrupted documents, flashes of frightened faces that belonged to none of the official dreams. All of this began to form a terrifying mosaic. What were these anomalies? Was her mind finally disintegrating? Or was there a more sinister truth behind the perfect scenarios she helped build? The seed of doubt had been planted, and with it, the unsettling feeling that the hope the oniric industry sold was, in fact, a web of lies, and that she, Lena, was right in the center of that web, not knowing if she was the spider or the fly. From that point, there was no turning back. The search for truth, driven by the terror of her own nightmares, was just beginning. The web of illusion, unraveling the conspiracy behind dreams each night, Lena's nightmares became more cohesive, less fragmented, transforming into a kind of oniric investigation. She began to decipher the voices, recognize the symbols, and piece together a macabre puzzle. They were not random system failures, but deliberate intrusions, hidden messages inserted into the dream data streams. Someone or something was using the harvest network itself to communicate, to warn. And the warning was clear. The oniric industry was not just selling hope, but stealing something far more precious. Her nightmares revealed the existence of secret chambers beneath the harvest centers, where the true, raw material was processed. It wasn't just brain patterns that were siphoned, but the very essence of the harvester's creativity, individuality, and ability to dream freely. The oniric siphon technology, in fact, not only extracted dreams but also drained the residual oniric energy, a kind of psychic life force that fueled human imagination. This energy was then concentrated and used to create the most vivid and desired premium dreams, those that seemed more real than life itself. The truth was horrifying. The corporations were not just exploiting the harvesters, but were emptying them, slowly turning them into empty shells, devoid of any imagination of their own. Cases of oniric fatigue and mental collapse were not side effects, but the end result of a brutal depletion process. The images in her nightmares showed scientists and executives in collusion, with graphs of oniric energy production and projections of harvester lifespan. They were corporate machines, devouring souls to sustain an empire of illusions. The awareness of this conspiracy hit Lena like an electric shock. She was not just a harvester, but an unwitting accomplice to a crime against humanity itself. The hope the masses consumed was, in fact, stolen from those who generated it, a vicious cycle of exploitation and false happiness. With each new revelation, the danger increased, as Lena knew that if they discovered she was aware, she would be eliminated, or worse, turned into a mere vegetable, an inexhaustible source of oniric energy without consciousness. Now, escape was no longer an option. The only way out was to fight against the web of illusion that imprisoned everyone. The silent rebellion, the high cost of artificial hope. Lena's discovery was not just a disturbing revelation, it was a catalyst. Armed with the knowledge of the truth hidden in the nightmares, she realized that the only way to combat the oniric industry was from within, using their own tools of manipulation. The first step was to understand how the nightmare fragments were being transmitted to her. Was it a data leak, a security flaw in the harvesting system, or a desperate attempt at communication from other harvesters who were also perishing? She began to manipulate her own oniric siphon, taking advantage of the transition moments between dreams to send small pulses of information, testing the limits of what the system would allow. It wasn't long before she realized she wasn't alone. Other harvesters, dispersed in different centers around the globe, were receiving her signals. They were like distant voices in the ether, exhausted but still resilient minds, who had also noticed the anomalies in their own oniric flows. Together, they formed a silent rebellion, a clandestine network of minds connected not by machines, but by shared pain and the desire for freedom. Using nightmares as a battlefield, they began to exchange information, map the architecture of the oniric industry, and identify the system's weaknesses. Every night, while the world slept in its purchased dreams, the network of rebel harvesters worked. They discovered that the drained oniric energy was being accumulated in a central server, a dream bank that not only stored fantasies but also suppressed the consciousness of the harvesters themselves, keeping them in a state of servitude. The rebellion's goal was clear: to release this accumulated energy and, in doing so, awaken the consciousness of all harvesters and expose the truth to the world. The tension was palpable. Each oniric connection was a risk, each message an act of defiance. Corporate surveillance was relentless, with anomaly detection algorithms constantly scanning the dream networks. One false move, one unusual pattern, and the rebellion would be crushed before it even began. The high cost of artificial hope had generated a resistance that could no longer be contained, a fight for the autonomy of the human mind against those who saw it only as a resource to be exploited. The climax of this oniric battle was approaching, and the fate of humanity itself hung in the balance. The awakening of consciousness. What happens when humanity chooses the truth? The rebel harvesters' plan was audacious and extremely dangerous. They had discovered the exact frequency and access code for the Dream Bank, the gigantic server that not only stored the drained oniric energy, but also acted as a global neural inhibitor, keeping the harvesters in a state of submission. The idea was to overload the system with a massive data pulse, a controlled explosion of oniric energy that would disable the inhibitors and release the consciousness of all harvesters simultaneously. It was a shot in the dark, but the only chance for freedom. The night of the Great Awakening arrived. As the city slept under the veil of its artificial dreams, Lena and her silent network prepared. In their harvesting capsules, with the oniric siphons ominously buzzing on their heads, they initiated the overload sequence. First, nothing. Just the familiar emptiness of others' dreams. But then a wave. It wasn't a dream, but an overwhelming feeling of connection. It was as if thousands of minds, previously isolated, merged into a single stream of thought, emotion, memory. The dream bank, overloaded, began to fail. Monitoring screens in corporate control centers flashed red. Shrill alarms echoed through empty corridors. Oniric industry executives watched in horror as their oniric production charts plummeted, and the accumulated energy dissipated in an uncontrollable surge. It wasn't a system failure. It was a rebellion of souls. With the release of oniric energy, the effect was immediate and chaotic. For a brief and glorious moment, all harvesters, from all stations, experienced a rush of their own dreams and the stolen memories of their peers. It was a sensory and emotional overload that, for some, led to collapse, but for most, brought a flash of liberated consciousness. They woke up, not to the empty routine, but to the naked truth of their exploitation. Screams of horror and fury echoed through the corridors, followed by a terrifying and determined silence. The awakening was not limited to the harvesters. The overload in the Dream Bank also caused a massive disruption in the distribution systems. Millions of consumers, immersed in their purchased dreams, were suddenly and violently ejected from their fantasies. Instead of paradises, they saw the fragmented images of the harvesters' nightmares. The cruelty of extraction, the exhausted faces, the secret chambers. The illusion was broken. The shock was universal. The streets that once displayed people in oniric ecstasy were now filled with panicked, confused, enraged individuals. The cost of artificial hope had been revealed, and humanity, which once fled from reality, was now forced to face it head-on. What would happen now that the truth had been unearthed and dreams were no longer a refuge, but a bitter memory of exploitation? The revelation shook the foundations of society, not only in the gray world where Lena and the harvesters fought, but in every mind that, for an instant, touched the harshness of truth. The oniric industry, once a pillar of hope, crumbled under the weight of its own lies, exposing the desolate face of human exploitation. The veil of illusion broke, and what remained was a naked world, forced to confront its choices. The harvest of dreams had ended, but the harvest of a new, hard, and uncertain reality was just beginning. Humanity, which once paid to dream, now had to learn to dream again, on its own. This journey, from the twilight of reality to the awakening of consciousness, leads us to a profound reflection. To what extent are we willing to sacrifice truth for a comfortable escape? And what is the true cost of hope when it is manufactured and sold, instead of being born from our own resilience? The story of the harvesters is an echo of a larger truth. The human capacity to dream, to create, to resist, and ultimately to choose reality, no matter how difficult it may be. It is our uniqueness, our most indomitable strength. If this immersion into the universe of the dream harvest touched you, if it made your mind wander and your heart question, then join our community. Like this video to show that you value stories that make us think. Share it with those who love good science fiction and need to escape reality for a moment, but with content that inspires. Leave your comment below telling us, what would you do if your dreams could be bought and sold? Would you surrender to the illusion or fight for the truth? And, of course, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to not miss the next epic explorations that await us in the confines of imagination. Until the next adventure.